Yeah, I had to turn on. I'm doing this from
Okay.
my phone. Yeah.
There you go.
All right, we are live streaming and recording is on.
Okay. Thank you. I hereby call this meeting to order. This is the City Council ad hoc meeting regarding the scenic road alteration for Long Ridge Road. Let's maybe go around and have everyone introduce themselves, all who are present.
Fred
Council
Visconti,
President Joe Calvo.
Fred Visconti, City Council.
Mike Esposito, City Councilman.
Antonio Idarola, Town Engineer and Public Works Director, City of Danbury Public Works.
Dwayne Perkins, City Council, Fifth Ward.
Okay. Is anyone else who has not identified themselves present at the meeting?
Farley Santos, Fourth Ward City Councilman.
Les Pinter, Deputy Corporation Counsel, Managing Attorney.
And Taylor O'Brien, Mayor's Office.
Okay. Anyone else? Just one last call. Okay. The purpose of this ad hoc meeting refers to an item that emanated out of the July council meeting regarding the scenic road alteration, which is paving of Long Ridge Road. And as we know, parts of Long Ridge Road are designated as scenic road and require special notice requirements. So I think at this point, I'll turn it over to Attorney Pinter to talk about the details of what is needed for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as the chairman indicated, the matter came to the council in July by virtue of correspondence from the mayor's office, where the mayor stated that Long Ridge Road, a portion of Long Ridge Road, was designated as a scenic road years ago pursuant to provisions in the local ordinance on scenic roads, which is in section 42-89 and the further sections related to that. The understanding is that the Public Works Department, Highway Department, has been very active in paving and milling and related business with respect to city roads. This is one of the roads that, again, Antonio can speak to this later on. This is one of the roads, Long Ridge Road, that would be paved and perhaps milled. A portion of this road represents the only road in Danbury that has been formally designated as a scenic road by the city council in this ordinance. The way, and if you look back at the development of the scenic road ordinance, you'll be able to see from the record that there was a lot of deliberation and discussion over specific procedures whereby routine maintenance would be dealt with and something greater than routine maintenance of a scenic road, which would result in more significant alterations or improvements to that portion of the scenic road on Long Ridge. What the reason that this is before the council and now before this ad hoc committee is that the ordinance specifically contemplates certain and specific procedures so that the council, the city council, can make a decision at the end of those procedures whether to adopt a resolution authorizing the work on that scenic road, the paving and milling and alterations on that portion of the scenic road on Long Ridge. So there's a few steps that need to be followed, and I think I forwarded to the committee for their benefit a few days ago the extracts of that ordinance in our code, which provides the roadmap for getting to that point being where the council would adopt the resolution fully and finally authorizing the work on the road. So basically, and you know, without getting into a full depth of the analysis, and again, I just want to remind everybody that the city council back 15, 20 years ago adopted these procedures. And we didn't. The council did in an intention to try to protect, to the extent that they could, the sanctity of a scenic road. If you designate a road scenic, presumably the council felt that you wanted to keep it scenic unless there's a way to do it and pave it and fix it at the same time. So that was the intent of this particular ordinance. So anyway, the first step is where we are, where the chairman opened the meeting. The first step is that any proposal to alter or improve the scenic road first begins with a submittal to the council of a suitable map and other particulars so that the council can see what is being proposed and where. That's step number one. And I'll only go to step number two because there are some other steps, but to keep it shorter. So that's step number one. The committee and then the council, when the council gets this, considers the information that Antonio and his department will provide. The second step is then the council, after consideration of the map and other information, would refer the proposal to the City Planning Commission for their review and a possible public hearing on their part. So, and then there are some other steps after which I mentioned to you. So anyway, the first step is tonight, the committee might want to consider what Antonio's department is proposing to do and indicating and showing the committee where and what the extent of the work is.
Okay. Thank you, Les. Okay, I think with that as a background, maybe for more input, if Mr. Iadrola is on the line, maybe you could speak to kind of the nature of the work that has to be done, as well as the timetable, given, we're already in August. And as this process continues, kind of what the different, pain points are as far as how late this process continues before work that can be done potentially this calendar year. Maybe Mr. Iadrola, you can speak to that.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if I could start with just a quick discussion on what our rehabilitation of the roadway consists of. I just want to make sure that we are clear that we are not looking to realign any horizontal or vertical curves. We're not looking to widen this road. We are purely looking at milling the surface and then putting some fresh asphalt down. We've gotten tremendous amount of complaints regarding the rideability of this road. We've also spent a considerable amount of money patching this road after winter. And we're at the point now where we really need to do something with this road surface. The other thing I want to mention is we've gotten numerous calls from residents, property owners that are constantly using this road, expressing how dangerous the road surface is and how it's in a total disrepair and it needs to be paved. So again, I want to just tell you, my department is going out of its way to pay respect to the scenic nature of this road. And all we're doing is looking at improving the existing pavement. And that's it. We're not looking to widen. We're not looking at doing major drainage work. We're not looking at doing any of that. So as far as time frame, we had originally scheduled this on the 6th. It was going to be done around the 16th of September. And I think we could probably still maybe hit that timetable, considering the fact that there's a large portion of the road that is not scenic that we could start on. The only thing we're trying to avoid is mobilizing our equipment there and not being able to do the entire road, because that will just cost the taxpayers more money for remobilizing and doing this portion of the road. So it's absolutely critical that we try to get our ducks in a row and get this road done in one shot. Remobilization costs could easily range between $2,000 to $4,000, all the way up to $12,000, depending on what time of the year we do it. So it's critical that we try to plan this the best that we can, so we can save money. So that's my basic presentation regarding the work that we are proposing on doing. And if there's any other questions you guys may have, I'm here for the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Iadrola. And I think just based on, as a follow-up to what Mr. Iadrola was saying, I just want to redirect to Mr. Pinter to talk about the remaining steps of the process, given I believe the next step would be for this committee to recommend or to refer the map and other documentation to go to the Planning Commission for a report. Maybe, Les, can you talk about the steps that are and the time frame that has to take place in order to look at the September 16th date that Mr. Iadrola just mentioned? So I'll turn that over to Mr. Pinter.
Sure. So Mr. Chairman and committee and members, the way it's laid out, and this is the first time that this has been used, so it's somewhat cumbersome, but from the legislative record, it appears that it was made cumbersome intentionally to act with due care when a scenic road was at issue, whether it be this one or any other roads that might be designated that in the future. So the map and the description of the portion of the road that is scenic is presented to this committee and to the council, so the council can look at it. And then at the next regular council meeting, that could be anyone coming up, the full council, having seen the presentation of what portion of the road and what work is going to be done, refers it to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission then takes a look at the information. If they want to, they don't have to, they can hold a public hearing on that information and application that's sent to them by the council. The Planning Commission then turns around after it's finished with the public hearing and its determinations, submits what are called findings of fact. And basically that's a determination after their review of how they feel about the that piece of the road, the scenic piece of the road, the nature of the work, and what their recommendation to the council, i.e., do they recommend to the council to do the work, the remedial work on that road, or not to do the work? If the Planning Commission, by the way, has to act within 35 days after receiving the information. Once the information from the Planning Commission, the findings of fact, or you can call it the report, is returned to the City Council, the City Council decides whether it wants to proceed or not to proceed. If the Planning Commission report is positive, that they're in favor of the scenic road paving and other work or other alterations, then the council, in order to decline to authorize the work, would need a 2/3 vote to reject the Planning Commission's positive approval. So it's a little bit different from the normal case where if something's denied, then the council can override it. In this case, if the Planning Commission says, yes, do it, the council can vote to do it, or the council can vote not to do it. The council votes not to do it, they need a 2/3 vote to do that. So that's a little bit in the weeds, but so that's the process. The full council, after it receives the ad hoc's report and recommendation, sends this matter to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission takes a look at it, has a public hearing if it wants to do that, makes its finding and files a report with the council, and then the council takes it and deal with it. One other step beyond that, since this involves paving, there's also a provision in the same section, and this is the part where I mentioned before that when this was adopted, the council decided to make it intentionally procedural in order to safeguard scenic roads, such as they may be in Danbury. The final step is that the council would need to adopt a resolution, but the resolution would only be adopted 60 days or 65 days, a couple of months after that adoption of the resolution. It is only then that the work on the scenic road can proceed. So as you can see, it's, you know, this is a time-rich type of procedure, but what you have before you is probably several steps that will take 60 to 90 days at the soonest, probably. But again, we haven't gone through this before, so it depends on how fast the commission acts. It depends on whether there's public hearings, the notices of those. It depends how long it takes the council to review and act on it too. So that's the basic nutshell.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pinter. So I think that being said, maybe I'll open the floor up to the committee members for their questions regarding this matter. Mr. Esposito or Mr. Visconti, do you have any questions?
And Mr. Chairman, if I could just, because
Oh,
this
sure.
may change, I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt, but I think it's important that I do that based on what I just heard from our council. As you know, to meet all the requirements that Les just put out there, it pushes us right out of this paving season. So I just want everybody to consider the fact that in order to be fully compliant with that process, we will not be paving this road this season. So we could do it as an early spring start, but that pushes me way into a late fall, impossible winter paving. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Idrola. Mr. Esposito?
Hi, Mr. Chairman, this is to Antonio, please. Antonio,
Yes, sir.
you made a remark that it's only going to cost $2,000 to $4,000, no more than $12,000 to pave this road?
No, council member. No, what I was saying is if we have to do the non-scenic portion and the scenic portion in a two-stage mobilization, it could cost anywhere between $4,000 to $12,000.
Okay. And Les already answered my other question about this season, not getting to the road. And you're planning on paving the whole road, Antonio?
That is correct. We were looking at doing the entire roadway, which makes sense. The entire road is basically in the same condition from the beginning right to the end. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I jump in with a
Yeah, Mr. Pinter, go ahead.
Since we're all on the same team and working for the same goal, I just wanted to make clear, I know what Antonio and his department are looking to do. It's all perfectly sensible and reasonable. I just wanted to make clear that there are two sections of this ordinance that could be used for these kinds of purposes. One is there's a routine road improvement section of the scenic road ordinance, which after examination and looking at what was proposed was not deemed available because the level of work for this project is more than that. But just so you know, if this were routine maintenance, and routine maintenance it involves graveling, retreatment, and repair of existing roadways. Those are the words: graveling, retreatment, and repair. The problem here is that the second classification of improvements are alterations which include milling and paving, paving specifically being mentioned as a higher level of improvement. That's why we have the time issue here. Just want to mention that fact.
Thank you, Mr. Pinter. Mr.
Mr. Chairman.
Esposito or Mr.
Chairman.
Visconti? Yep.
Thank you, sir. To Les, if I may. Les, I've had the opportunity to read the paperwork of the original setting of a scenic road on Long Ridge Road, a part of the Long Ridge Road. And reading that, I noticed that it mentioned the possibility of the state legislative people looking into this? If something was going to be done on the scenic part of the road? Do you know anything about that?
Fred, are you, Councilman Visconti, are you talking originally when the ordinance was adopted?
That's correct. Back about 15 years ago.
I don't, I don't recall that offhand, but if that's there, then we'd have to look at it. I don't see that. I didn't see that in the ordinance itself. So we'd have to check that out. I don't know what that would mean at this point.
Yeah, I think you might want to look at that. I don't know whether it would really come into this situation or not, but it did point out there that due to this was a scenic, or part of the road was made a scenic area, that the state legislative people might be involved in saying something about it. Hopefully that may have changed. I haven't seen anything else but that.
Yeah, this is a uniquely local road. I'm not sure what the state might say about it unless they had funded something back at that time, but I'm not aware of that.
Okay. Antonio, if I may. On the road itself, we're looking at just paving. We're not looking at taking the curves out or taking easement situations this time around, or?
That is correct. This is strictly taking an existing paved scenic road and rehabilitating the paved portion of that road. We're not widening it 1 inch. We're not taking any horizontal or vertical curves and altering them. This is completely what we call a mill and fill. You mill it and you fill it.
Okay, Les, if I may, one more time. I'm gonna find that paperwork. I got it here somewhere, and I will bring it down to you. You can take a look at it. So maybe that might help you out in finding out what's got to be done with the state, if anything. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Visconti. Any other members of the council, ex officio members who are present? Does anyone else have a question for Mr. Pinner or Mr. Iadrola?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Mr. Perkins?
Yeah, I'll take a question. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Iadrola.
Go ahead, council member.
Hey, Antonio. Yeah, I heard everything that you said. When we were in the area last year, Fred and I, we explained to a lot of those residents in that area that, despite the fact that that road is in very, very poor condition, we weren't necessarily going to be putting major resources toward it in 2020 because we were working on Grand Street, and I guess we're making some pretty good accomplishments over there. I drove through the other day. This road isn't typically prone to washouts and flooding, but will you be changing out the catch basins on the road?
So that's a very good question. What we found from inventorying this entire road is there's very minimal drainage on the non-scenic portion of the road, which we will do. What we typically do is replace catch basin tops. We inspect the catch basins, make sure they don't need to be repaired. But the scenic portion of the road really has no drainage other than what we call leak-offs, natural leak-offs that water comes off the edge of the road and makes its way into, wetland areas and brooks and other sort of catchment areas. So we will not be doing any major drainage work as it pertains to this piece of the road, or I should say the scenic road portion. We never intended on putting drainage in. In my opinion, that is a major alteration of a scenic road, which we're trying to stay away from and pay respect to the designation of this road.
Would you increase the crown of the road, based on best practices, or that would just go under standard reconstruction?
Yeah, we would just basically do what we typically do, and that is we mill it flat, and then we put a crown in that matches our city spec. So that's what we would do. Yep. The miller always mills flat, and then we would put in the crown with the paver, which is a typical crown, probably from because that's a narrow road from the center to the edge. It would probably be about a 2-inch to 2.5-inch drop.
Okay. Just one last thing. I mean, I'm happy that we are where we are. I just wish this process had started a little bit earlier. I guess my only thing is that, is there anything that we can do this year to some of those sections? Because some of those spots are, as you know, a little bumpy, but is there anything that we can do to just kind of maybe do like a little patch sealing just to get some of those rougher sections smoothed over?
Well, council member, I mean, what we're trying to do is, the reason why we're paving this road is we're trying to minimize our overall maintenance costs. If this road doesn't look like it's going to be paved this year, then yes, we're going to maintain potholes and do standard maintenance as we've done over the last couple of years. We don't have a choice. We do have to maintain it for safe passage of the public. But when we wouldn't be doing any major like skid paving or anything like that. We would just deal with whatever potholes come up this winter. And our goal would be to try to, in the springtime, this would be like the first road we hit.
Okay. So let me just get that straight. We mentioned something about September 16th. And then I believe I heard a little bit later on that it wasn't going to be scheduled for 2020. Is that correct?
Well, again, it is scheduled right now for mid-September, give or take a week, depending on weather. So that's currently where we program this road into our paving program, knowing that what might impact that would be the whole scenic road approvals that we need in order to do the paving. So, and based on the way this is shaking out and where we are today, most likely we're not going to get the approvals to facilitate that September startup or even a later startup. Remember, I program all my roads the best I can based on length and how complex they are. And I get a commitment from our paving company to follow that plan. So once I start changing up our plan, we jeopardize losing our paving contractor, which I don't want to do.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I thought I had one more thing, but I lost it. Thanks for the information, Antonio.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Mr. Cavo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just so the members of the committee understand tonight, if this has a positive outcome tonight out of committee, we're going to put it as an add-on on tomorrow night's council meeting. So that hopefully will help nip off waiting until September to get it on to the agenda. So I don't know if that helps with any of the time frame, but just know that we're going to, if it has a positive outcome, we're going to add it on tomorrow night at the end of tomorrow's agenda to get it to move to the Planning Commission as recommended by Mr. Pinter. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cavo. Any other ex officio members wish to address Mr. Pinter or Mr. Iadrola?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Alves.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, through you to Les. Les, with if this makes it with the positive recommendation to the council agenda tomorrow, do you feel we are okay within the time to get this to Antonio's team for September 16th?
Councilman Alves,
Because it doesn't, if it's 60 days, that doesn't seem like it, right? I mean.
Yeah, thanks
Okay.
for that question. I don't see, I mean, if the procedure is, as we discussed on the second part of the ordinance, let's call it the alteration, paving, the more substantial work, the September deadline is not realistic based on that. There's just too many steps in between to accomplish that.
And Mr. Chair, through you to Les again, I just want clarity around the public hearing. I see in the letter from the mayor, and this should just be my misinterpreting or no malice here. It says that to approve the work intended, including planning review, public hearing, it says including. So we don't need a public hearing then. I just want to be assured that that's the case.
Yeah, no, yeah, what happens here, Berto, is that you have the potential for two public hearings. One is discretionary, that's by the planning commission. So if tomorrow night or whenever it is, the council refers this issue to the planning commission, they have 35 days for their review, and they may have a public hearing at any point in that 35-day
Understood.
period. They don't have to. Second public hearing is when the planning commission returns their recommendation to the council, then the council must have a public hearing. So
Understood. Thank you for that.
That's part of
That's
your.
absolutely the question I had. Thank you, Mr. Pinter. That was the clarity I needed. Antonio, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, through you to Antonio.
Go ahead.
Antonio, the no drainage that you confirmed. So I know we spoke not too long ago, and your team was out there the next day to deal with some water issues with drainage because of curbs not being there that used to be. So thank you very much for that. Your team did a great job. The resident was very happy. So there's no drainage needed on that part of the road either, because it is pretty bad. I was seeing it after a storm, how the property floods in with his barn and his garage too. The barn was addressed, the garage isn't, and that side of the road, is that crowning enough to hold the water? Because it's not just that, it is more on a little ledge there. So there's no draining needed on any part of that portion of the scenic road.
Council member, my team did go out there to address your constituents' concerns. And yes, we went out the very next day. And there was a portion of curbing that was knocked out, which was causing a lot of issues. And my team told me that they feel that when the road is repaved, and we, part of the repaving is we also touch up people's driveway aprons. That's always part of, you'll see any road that we repave, we usually have to touch the first 5 feet or 10 feet of somebody's apron. Every once in a while we get lucky and it works perfectly and we don't have to do anything. But the intent was to try to adjust his apron to make sure that he wasn't impacted by any road drainage. One of the things that I think is important for everybody to know is it's almost, even if this was not a scenic road, it's almost impossible to be putting drainage in this road because basically the entire road is on ledge. So you would be looking at blasting on top of blasting to be able to get any type of drainage in. And because the road has got so many ups and downs, we would have to secure easements on top of easements to allow us to drain that drainage through private properties. So it's an old road. It's a road that was predominantly traveled with horse and buggy, and that's really, and it's got a lot of appeal for that. That's one of the reasons why it became a scenic road. So as much as we may want to put some drainage in there, at this point, it's almost impossible to facilitate that.
No, and I want to be clear. I think the residents I've talked to actually don't want the drainage. Maybe you'll have one who does, but 5 who don't. And I appreciate the complexities with this road. Certain people hold certain values. Others some want to see it paved. Some don't want to see it paved because they're afraid the road's going to be widening, even if we assure them it's not. And I know it's not. Some are worried about speeding if we pave it, and others don't want their tires in the road. And bikers, Dwayne Councilman Perkins is very familiar. It's a very popular road with cyclists, and it's a tough road for them to ride. So I thank everybody for the attention. I am a little upset that it doesn't look like it's going to happen this year, and I hope that we can relay that message to the residents here because they were expecting it. When the bond was passed for the $62 million for road work, Long Ridge Road was one that was called out as something that's going to be done right away. And now we're looking at only a portion of Long Ridge Road being done. So that is upsetting. I wish that maybe we could have jumped on this a little sooner. A letter from the mayor is dated July 6th to all of the city council on this. As all the city council member, I only saw it last week. Wouldn't have changed the process because it wouldn't have made it to the council's agenda until now. But at least we probably could have had the ad hoc now, more time to reach out to the residents to let them know this is going to be on the agenda less than 24 hours from now for tomorrow for their commenting. So it's more of a matter of process, not anything on Antonio or less, but it's unfortunate. I think we could have had more time for this. When a letter is dated July 6th and we see it last week, we could have possibly had this ad hoc, this conversation a lot sooner to let the residents who are going to be upset about this. I live here. I live off of Long Ridge Road. I have family on Long Ridge Road. I am part of an active member of the Long Ridge Road Association. So I know what's going to come of this, and I will do my best to mitigate any questions and let them know about the processes. I do believe this is good that these processes are in place to protect the nature of scenic road. When you make it complicated, you can't have a lot of the alterations. But when we assured residents something was going to happen, and now it's not going to happen this year, is going to be upsetting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Alves. Anybody else? Any other councilman wish to speak?
Mr. Foxford,
Yeah, Mr. Cabo.
You're muted, Joe.
I said in response to Councilman Alves' comments, this went on the agenda July. It's going to get on the August agenda. So I don't know what time savings there would have been, whether we had done it in the second week of July or whether we're doing it tonight. It's still going to be on the August agenda. I'm holding out hope. Maybe we have some paving time in October, and Antonio will be the expert on that, and we'll leave it up to him to decide. He does sometimes pull rabbits out of his hat, and I'm not considering this completely done for this year, and I hope Antonio isn't either. And let's keep positive thoughts on this. We'll see if we get it ahead. It's the ordinance. It's the way the ordinance was written. Somebody wanted to protect this road against anything happening. They wrote a very difficult, cumbersome, restrictive ordinance, and it's come back to bite us. And that's basically what it is. So we're just dealing with that. We're going to deal with it the best way we can, and we'll move forward. And we'll keep an open mind, seeing if we can maybe get some late paving in if the weather's cooperative in October, and Antonio can, pull a ninth inning home run to win the game. We'll get it done. So let's see what happens. Let's not lose all hope. Stay positive. Gotta stay positive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cabo. Any further questions?
Mr. Chair, if I could just clarify my question through you, or my comment
Mr.
through you.
Alves. Yeah,
Thank
proceed.
you. Through the chair to City Council President Joe Cavo, I am very optimistic and I'm very hopeful that we can get it done. My thing on timing wasn't necessarily the process. I understand it's in messaging to the constituents. We're having the ad hoc the night before a rescheduled meeting. This ad hoc was not scheduled before the regular August meeting, so it would not have happened before that meeting normally. So the constituents wouldn't have known. And I'm just saying we could have mitigated any conversations with them sooner if we knew about it beforehand and let them know what was coming. That's all. And again, a lot of things have been happening recently, pandemics and natural disasters now. So I'm not knocking anybody. I just wanted to clarify it wasn't on the time of the process, but in the timing of constituents and public participation and knowledge of what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alves. And any other questions from the ex officio members? Okay, I just have one further question for Mr. Iadrola, just based on just the last 10 minutes of conversation, is that I know there's some additional cost if say, the non-scenic portion of the road was done and the scenic portion of the road was done later. Would you say the condition of the road is so poor that maybe there's some additional cost for a second mobilization, but it would benefit, maybe an overall benefit, to pave most of the road or that portion of the road that doesn't have to go through this process? Would you recommend doing that, or would the temporary measures suffice until, whenever the entire road could be done?
So that's an interesting question. Having been involved in paving large neighborhoods, I've been doing this for over 30 years now. I don't know how well it will play out for all of you guys as council members to pave half of this road and not the entire road. I think the irony of that, the agony of that, may not play out well with all of the constituents that are involved. And it does add additional cost to the project, which I always try to minimize. So ultimately, I'll take my direction from the mayor. But just understand, people will become very sensitive to the fact that only half the road got paved. And you will always have a cold joint where I end this year's paving and I begin next year's paving. You will always see that joint. Not a big deal. Just for me, it's almost like a little blemish. Again, the mayor will ultimately give me guidance whether or not to move ahead with the non-scenic road portion. And I will work with the mayor's office with that. The other thing I just want to mention is I was just playing around with some of the requirements that Les laid out, which he did a great job laying them out. And I was playing with a calendar. If everything goes absolutely perfect, you're almost to a 5 or 6 month process from the time you start to the time that I'm allowed to actually pave. So, and that's an ordinance requirement. That's a significant amount of time to get through this process. And I believe it was set up that way so nobody would jump into altering or repaving a scenic road before everybody had time to think about it. But that's an outrageous amount of time. So we do have to follow the ordinance. I assure you, if it doesn't get done this year because of the timely requirements of the ordinance, it will be absolutely the first road that I mobilize to in the springtime. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Iadrola. Any
Mr.
further
Chair-
comment?
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yeah,
very
Mr.
quickly,
Visconti.
to Mr. Iadrola and yourself and the committee members, I totally agree with what Antonio has to say. I've talked to a lot of the folks up at Long Ridge Road, and I also belong to the Long Ridge Road Association. And I really think that just by doing one part of the road and not the other part, this has to be done all at once. That's the only way to get it done the right way. And people I talked to didn't have any problem with that. That's the way we have to get it done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Visconti.
Mr. Chairman,
any-
can I
Yeah,
remark?
Yeah,
quickly?
Mr. Pinner. Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. I also appreciate Antonio's remarks, right on point. Just a couple of quick points though, before closing out. My recollection, and Freddie, you might have some also other people, but my recollection was that the folks who petitioned for the scenic road designation years ago were not afraid of cumbersome requirements for the reasons Antonio mentioned. They were very protective of this road and its history. And so the council members at that point in time, 20 years ago, whenever it was, accepted that. And this set of timelines and procedures was set out in the ordinance. So it's some comfort, I guess, and this responds also to Councilman Alves and President Cabo, that even if this would have come to you in June, you still would have been facing a pretty broad timeline for good reason, as established by the council. I do encourage the council members, before submitting this to the Planning Commission, to make sure that you carefully reviewed those subsections that I've sent you, because it has important information in there for people to understand why this was developed in the way it was, why this portion of the road was intended to be so protected and so safeguarded. And you'll see in there's a mother lode of information and reasons why that was done. And also it was the intention of the ordinance drafters at the time to make sure the council members reviewed specific mapping information and layout and designation, so that they were comfortable with wanting to do the work on the road even before they sent it to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission, remember, will want documentation on what the work will be, what it looks like, what the layout is. So when the council sends it to the planning commission, or at least when it gets it back, the council should review that information and be comfortable that they've seen exactly the nature of the work and the depiction of the work that's going to be done out there. It's very important.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Pinner. Okay, so I believe, does anyone else have a comment? Okay, so if not, I believe Mr. Pinner circulated a motion if we did want to choose to move this ahead. So the chair would seek a motion to do so from the committee members.
Mike,
Mr. Esposito has his hand up.
Yeah, Mr. Esposito,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I make a motion that we approve this recommendation and move forward with the paving of Long Ridge Road, and also with the possibility of putting this on the agenda for tomorrow night's
Second.
council meeting.
second motion.
a motion made and seconded by Mr. Visconti. Question to for discussion, I have a question for Mr. Pinter. I believe the motion needs to include a referral to the planning commission. Is that correct?
Yeah, what I just heard was not the motion that I had suggested or recommended to you. I would urge you to adopt the one I gave you because it has specific tie-in to the strict language of the ordinance.
So moved by me.
You can adopt whatever you want, but just my suggestion.
I retract my motion and go with Les's motion.
Maybe somebody should read it.
Yeah, Mr. Esposito, so that motion stated to recommend to the city council, refer to the proposed map and other documentation for the alteration and paving of the scenic road portion of Long Ridge Road to the Danbury Planning Commission for a report and further proceedings as required by City Code Section 42-187D, Mr. Esposito. So that was the motion Mr. Pinter circulated.
That's
So
fine
Mr.
with me.
Okay. So motion moved by Mr. Esposito. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Visconti. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for attending the meeting. The chair
Thank you.
seeks a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Good night, folks.
Good night, everyone. Stay safe.
Good night.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make
So
a motion
moved.
that we adjourn.
Is there a
So moved.
second? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night.
Good
Thank
night.
you.